Our focus for GL Days this year is the need to update floodplain maps around the province. Floodplain maps show areas that are subject to high flood hazard. Existing floodplain maps are primarily outside of the Lower Mainland, and they're used in many ways, including by local governments to decide how and where communities grow or for emergency response planning, but they're also used by realtors. This is a real estate issue because most existing floodplain maps in BC are out of date. That means development decisions aren't based on good information, which in turn puts British Columbians at risk. Taking action now to minimize damage that floods can cause will be more cost-effective than responding to a flood like we saw in Alberta last year. Real estate markets like High River are still reeling from June's flood, which was the most expensive natural disaster in Canadian history. And the effects go beyond just the financial. Infrastructure, businesses may be impacted, health and welfare, and even the stress of dealing with a crisis like that. BC has the opportunity to invest in flood mitigation now, and that starts with floodplain maps. This is a classic quality of life issue because it requires a balance among the interests of property owners, the environment, housing choices, the economy, and safe communities. Floodplain maps are out of date because in 2003, provincial legislation changed, shifting primary responsibility for floodplain maps to local government. Most of the existing floodplain maps were created before 2003 under agreements between the province and the federal government. Unfortunately, not all local governments have the resources or the expertise to update or create floodplain maps, and very few have done that since 2003. BCREA has done quite a bit of work on this issue. We first started hearing about water-related issues in 2006 from our member boards, and we've lobbied on flood-related issues since 2007. After consulting with member boards, we decided to narrow our focus to flooding. And outdated floodplain maps seemed like an obvious and tangible starting point, since those maps help assess risk, and that's the first step in mitigating damage. In March last year, we hosted a workshop with stakeholders and practitioners involved with flood management, land use, and emergency management. And out of that workshop came the Floodplain Maps Action Plan, which is 21 items that are intended to lead to updated floodplain maps that can be kept current. There's a lot of stakeholders that support this effort, including the Real Estate Foundation of BC, the Fraser Basin Council, the Adaptation to Climate Change team at Simon Fraser University, and the Okanagan Basin Water Board. We benefit hugely from the expertise of others on this issue, but our involvement also has shed a new light on floodplain maps. We're asking the provincial government for three key things. One, to take the lead working with local and federal governments to ensure floodplain maps are updated and remain current. This issue is too complex to expect one level of government to deal with it alone, but we need leadership to move it forward. Two, develop guidelines to help update floodplain maps. This resource could address a range of risk assessment tools, including floodplain maps, and could complement existing resources. This guidance will help improve consistency among floodplain maps, as well as risk assessment approaches. Three, amend the flood protection program to fund technical studies. The flood protection program is a provincial initiative that also includes some federal funding. Local governments can apply to this program for financial assistance with permanent structures for flood protection, like dikes, but it currently doesn't fund risk assessment studies like floodplain maps, and that needs to change. By using government liaison days to speak with one voice about the need to update floodplain maps, realtors stand with many other professionals in the province to demonstrate their commitment to quality of life in BC.